Jaman has invoked Parley, and you can sign up to do the same. Behold! Parley about Twitch, the rating and auto-hosting features, and how they fit into the current culture on Twitch. Jaman says, "Man, I hate hosting on Twitch. It's like an anti-feature. I don't give a shit about streamers I don't follow, and I don't think the end of someone's stream is the correct time to expose me to new things. Especially because it's usually somebody with loud music that screams down their mic." End quote. Jaman added that Twitch already has the raid feature, which allows you to opt out of the hosting, and so why don't you just make it opt-in, which is indeed how it used to be. Then you can do it if you care about it instead of getting alienated. He wishes that I would disable the auto-hosting feature, but he feels like that's not a common opinion and that it's not a reasonable request. So there are quite a few ways I want to respond to this, and I've done like 10 takes of this, so let me try to keep each of them brief, but I do have a lot to say on the subject. First of all, there are a couple of reasons that I use the auto-hosting feature anyway, since you specifically asked about that, but I'm also going to talk about raids a little bit, raiding, as a feature on Twitch, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think this bothers you, and because I do think it's quite reasonable for this to bother you. It might seem like kind of a nitpick, like why does it even matter to you to some people? But I think it does make sense, and I think it specifically makes sense in my community. So I'm going to talk about these things by summarizing them first. I'm hoping that's going to keep the length down. So there are a couple of reasons I still use auto-hosting. The principal ones are that sponsors and like Twitch itself like to see the auto-hosting feature getting used kind of as a resume piece, and you got to keep in mind that my stream is effectively my resume in this job. My second response is that I try to curate my auto-hosting quite a bit. So those are some reasons why I do use it anyway, despite my own dislike of those features on Twitch. And part of the reason I dislike those features, and think maybe you do too, is that it's almost like hosting somebody else or rating somebody else. It's almost like you're telling the audience member anything will do, right? And then you send them somewhere else. And it's like, no, not anything will do. And I think that the reason it feels like that to my audience is that I don't really focus on the things that are characteristic of Twitch. I focus on the things that are characteristic of me, whereas a lot of streams focus on things characteristic of Twitch. A lot of streams are very similar, and mine is a little bit different. And I think that that makes it more likely that my audience is going to feel like, well, no, I don't want to just watch something else. I was only here for this. I don't want to watch streams. I want to watch you. Even though other people have standards too. It's not like only my audience has standards for their entertainment. It's just that my audience's standards are not that close to what Twitch normally has as often as they are on other channels. Likewise, I think that Twitch is sort of doing these things, like Twitch has these features, Twitch developed this culture, because the game that is the influencer meta in the world we live in today is made up of a bunch of rules that nobody understands. So it's very tempting to say, oh, if you just raid and host people, you're doing your bit to grow. Like that is one of the rules, if you will. Even though we all know deep down in our hearts that there are no rules, that there's a lot of luck to success in this industry, and that you really just have to be good and, put yourself into your work. But it feels really good to think, oh, I can share my views with someone and maybe put myself out there a little bit. Like that seems like something you should do on the surface. It sounds reasonable, which is why I think it's become this common thing to do. Okay, so that's basically what I think about the topic. Let me go a little bit more in depth on each point. So first of all, sponsors like to see you using this thing. Again, your stream, your Discord, your YouTube channel, whatever, your comment section, oh boy, are your resume in this industry. And so if you're looking for a sponsor or a Twitch partnership or just other streamers are looking to get in touch with you, they're gonna look at general things about your channel. Obviously, they would prefer to get to know you really well first. They'd prefer to watch a whole stream. They'd prefer to do a lot to get to know you as a streamer first. That's what companies want to do when you apply for a normal job. But they don't have time. The world has grown too large. And so they know that they can't purely look at you just for you. They have to use some statistics to make it more or less likely that they will work well with you or that you will work well with them, that you'll be a good partner. And auto-hosting is just one of those front-facing things. If you've got a large follower count, you got a lot of subscribers, you're auto-hosting people all the time, you're just active, it looks like, there are things happening. That in and of itself carries a lot of weight and value, and that is important. So part of the reason that I still bother to use auto-hosting, even though, as I'll go on to explain, I think it's less worthwhile for my community. Again, because of that idea that my audience often doesn't want things that are typical of streams. They want things typical of me. So it's very unlikely they're going to just like someone else's stream compared to other audiences. I still use it to some degree because it's just considered to be an industry formality, and that kind of sucks, but I'm not willing to stem my progress and growth just because of that. So for that, I apologize, Jaman. I am going to keep using it for that purpose, but I know you know that. So the second reason is that I try to curate it, like I don't generally just put anyone on my auto hosting because I think, if you're going to have it, you might as well keep it controlled. Not just anyone who seems like a decent human being, and you don't really know, how much time do you really have to get to know these people? But some of them I have had time to get to know, like Zelp and Joey and Zeno and Michelle. Like, I am relatively comfortable recommending those streams. I do think it is somewhat more likely that my audience is going to like those people because I've directly interacted with them. In all those cases, I've made a video with those people. Which means it is fairly likely in the grand scheme of things that you'll enjoy their content. Now, maybe not you specifically, Jaman. Again, we'll get into that more in a minute. But in general, I do think that as long as you curate it, auto-hosting can be a useful thing. Network, cross-pollinate with the people that you're already doing that with. It's good to have more heads-up displays of what's going on with those people. And, you and your friends doing your thing. Being more front-facing, that makes it easier for your audience to follow along, and a lot of people really like that. So that's part of why. There are also a couple people in my auto-hosting that are there for like meta reasons, I guess. So for example, I auto-host Brozyme, or I did for a while, because he's often compared to me, so I know my audience like thinks about him a good amount, whether they like him or not. Whether I agree with him or not, I feel like he's relevant to my content, so I felt that was a reasonable auto-host in the grand scheme of things. He's also streaming at very different times than me, so there's that. People like Tigerstripe, who I think are just very neutral, very unobjectionable, kind people. Sorry, Tigerstripe, I don't mean to say you don't have any opinions or anything, but just somebody that I think is very nice and relaxing, and that I think even if they provide things you're not going to love, or that you didn't sign up for, I think he's pretty good at those things. And I think he has a chance to win you over, even if you're not normally into that stuff. I would say Alyak Kayla is another good example of a streamer like that. But again, that's just my guess, and it's possible that those are not good guesses. It's very hard for me to know. Statistics about auto-hosting are pretty much non-existent. So, no, there are some, but it's like, how much does it really mean? Because a lot of the time it's just, you have similar viewers and they happen to click on one of the person's streams before the other person, and you're auto-hosting that person, so they go, but it's not because you auto-hosted, it's just because they were going to go anyway and they were just seeing who was on. So it's hard to say. Anyway, so that's my relationship with auto-hosting. You'll notice, Jaman, you'll be very familiar with the fact that I raid a lot less often. And again, I'll talk about that more in depth now. The reason I raid much less often is that I think it is a much more direct statement to the audience member. Again, like I was saying before, it's almost like telling the audience member that you suppose that anything will do. And I think I know, Jaman, that you are the kind of person to whom that's a little insulting in this very odd, particular way. You don't like that. Not anything will do. You want me to be aware that you want to watch me. You don't want to watch somebody else, and that I am not a stand-in for someone else, that it's my specific content. And that's very flattering. I really appreciate that. But at the same time, it's tricky because a lot of my audience members probably don't feel that way. They probably feel like, well, I want to watch some Warframe. I want to get caught up with the game. That's another common thing I'm told. People want to get caught up with the game, so they're watching streams, they get caught up. They want a help desky environment. And to be fair, there are a few other people that I auto-host that and or raid that come close to my level of help desking. Although I am the pinnacle of the help desk stream for Warframe. Of course, we do have a few other people who do stuff like that. So sure, my network is a good place to get information. That's fair. And some people are willing to ask it from those people. I'm also a secondary stream for quite a few people, and they would like to be taken to the primary person that they usually watch all the time if they happen to be watching my stream. That's exciting for people. So there's that. And then, of course, there are people who would just like any stream. Like, there are a lot of people who are pretty neutral about it. They just want to see what's in the Warframe directory. They just wanted some gameplay. They just wanted to check the game out or look at the game's community. And so they really, anything will do, because they just want to get a general idea. So they would probably like it if you said, well, I recommend this stream. And they're like, oh, cool, sure. And another thing is that I think it's pretty important to pitch streamers. So if you're going to host, you send somebody a raid that you don't know anything about, it's not often that it will be successful because you can't pitch them. You can't say, like, this is why you would want to watch this stream. This is my relationship to this person, whatever. Sometimes that goes well. Sometimes it helps anyway. But often when I don't have a story to tell about the person I'm raiding, I don't do it because I just don't think it'll be helpful. And I don't want to give them the idea that there was this massive amount of support, but it was just so I could say, hey, look at me existing. You should plug me. Or just by putting my name on their screen, with a rating alert, you're kind of plugging yourself to them. And that's considered to be okay. You could just turn off the raid alerts if you don't like that. But at the same time, it's like, if I know my audience is not likely to watch you, I don't want to abuse that. I don't want to, support you, quote unquote, but it's not real support. Even if I would like it to be. Like, I would like it to be, but it's just not a lot of the time. And so there's that as well. I hope that all makes sense. Again, I just kind of feel like it's important to note that my audience does have that different character. And I do think that Twitch and the auto-hosting rating features specifically are built on the premise that people would be likely to watch more streaming specifically if it was put in front of them. But that's just not the case for a lot of kinds of people. My stream doesn't resemble a lot of others. I don't have music. I don't have a flashy overlay. My stream is just what you're seeing right now, plus a webcam and a back shadow in the corner, and then very lo-fi alerts at the top. I don't even put them more in the center, which is where a lot of people put them. And so it's not very likely that you'd be willing to just watch something else because it's just not very similar to what you were watching before. It's like if you watch sitcoms and somebody recommends another sitcom, it's like, well, yeah, like perhaps you'll enjoy that. But if you recommend something totally out of left field, it's like, well, obviously they are just less likely to like that. Even if you say, but this is like the best show in that genre. It's like, but it's a crapshoot whether they even like that genre. And I think that part of the thing that's going on with Twitch right now is that people don't really think of there as being genres of streamer. I've noticed that that's only just started happening. I feel like with the advent of the Just Chatting channel being really popular, the art channel becoming really popular, like those categories of streaming becoming more popular, that's just been in the past year or two. And the advent of, off the top of my head, Dr. Disrespect is a fairly popular caricature streamer. That's an important part of his act. He appreciably has something you might call an act. That is a genre of stream. Building into a streamer that is using tool-assisted streaming techniques, very heavy on like back-end technology and concept, not so much on just providing like static entertainment. Like, it's more like a show and less like TV, more like theater, which is already similar to my video style and like what I'm doing right now. That is getting more popular. For another example of someone who does something like that, CivHD comes to mind. Again, these are not necessarily people I endorse, like, support, or don't endorse, like, or support. It's just people I can think of that are examples of doing this. Civ is an example of a streamer who will do video-like things in a stream, like live. That is something that I'm pushing into soon, using a pared-down aesthetic to emphasize the things that are being added. I like that kind of stuff. So, Twitch is young. Twitch is a young platform. And I am trying to do something very specific with it. I became a YouTuber because I thought YouTubers were cool. I became a Twitch streamer because I thought Twitch was a young platform that kind of disappointed me so far. I wanted to make a cool stream because I wasn't seeing what I wanted to watch as much. Not to say that other streamers are bad. There's a lot of awesome talent on Twitch. It's just not what I want to watch. I want to make something that I want to watch. Maybe encourage other people to do the same. We'll see. So that's my full response on that. I hope that makes sense. I hope that that's all relatively clear, even though I'm cutting a huge amount. I actually ended up writing a script for these ones. These are usually more ad-libbed. I usually just write podcast-like show notes, but This was hard to pair out my thoughts about because I have a lot to say about it, and I consider it to be fairly important. I consider this topic to be fairly important. Yeah, Jaman, thank you for your support. I've been Zandy, and I want to thank Jaman for their support again, as always, and for your patience. You asked this question a while ago, and it took me a while to get a version of my answer I was happy with. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have something to take care of.